It appears to be an ordinary drop of water, but once it encounters blood, it rapidly undergoes fission. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and so the cycle continues. It can even fill the entire earth. This terrifies the people present. Shochin resorts to freezing water, spraying it at the water droplet. The extremely low temperature quickly freezes the droplet, halting its further division. The 3 people have never seen such a terrifying virus. The consequences of infecting humans are unimaginable. Unfortunately, the unimaginable becomes reality. The infected man's body begins to swell. Even his ear canals ooze water. In the next moment, all colleagues are stunned, but the man, like a faucet, continuously sprays water from his mouth. Minutes pass, yet the man remains on the ground. Large amounts of water flow to the feet of his colleagues, unaware that touching that water leads to instant infection. After dozens of minutes, the man finally stops. At this point, the doctor arrives. The man is choking on water, so the doctor cuts open his throat, inserting a tube. The result, a torrent of virus-laden water sprays out. Water molecules instantly permeate the entire spacecraft. An even more horrifying disaster is about to unfold. As it turns out, in the not-so-distant year 2075, global precipitation continues to decline. The rivers and lakes on Earth have all dried up. Desalination of seawater is merely a drop in the bucket. In search of more freshwater resources, humanity has set its sights on several planets near Earth. Unexpectedly, they discovered the miraculous lunar water. To ascertain the source of this lunar water, Country H mobilized its national resources and constructed the Bohai base on the moon to conduct secret experiments. However, an accident led to the loss of all 177 scientific researchers at the Bohai base. The government sealed off the entire Bohai base, and the cause of the accident was not disclosed to the public. Time quickly advanced to 5 years later. At this point, water resources could no longer meet the daily needs of humanity. The government had no choice but to establish a strict rationing system for drinking water. Depending on one's status, the amount of water received varied. Red card residents could collect 400 milliliters of drinking water per day. Blue card residents could collect 1 liter per day. As for the highest level gold card, it provided an unlimited supply. This Dr. Song Jian, who held a gold card, was once a doctoral researcher in astrobiology. Yet for some unknown reason, she now studied animal behavior. One day, Chief Jean from the National Space Agency found her, hoping to invite her to participate in a special space mission. Dr. Song didn't even think before refusing, but when Chief Jean mentioned going to the Bohai base, she changed her mind in an instant. It turns out that Dr. Song's sister was the chief scientist at the Bohai base. She too perished in that accident. Because of her sister, she received that unlimited water supply gold card to uncover the cause of her sister's death. That's why she changed her mind. The main mission of this moon landing was to retrieve important samples left behind. The time allotted to stay on the moon was only 24 hours. When Dr. Song asked what the sample was made of, the head of the space agency said that due to the accident, the data was lost. They also didn't know exactly what it was, only that the sample was contained in a capsule, and it was preserved at an extremely low temperature. Special attention was needed if the temperature fluctuated or the exterior was damaged. Captain Kong, responsible for this mission, stated, "This was just an ordinary mission. All that was needed was to follow the procedure and retrieve the sample." After the meeting, Dr. Song questioned Captain Kong. The probability of all team members completing the mission alive was less than 10%. Too many uncertainties affected this mission. Captain Kong told her, whether on Earth or on the moon, there are unforeseeable risks. Thus, their first conversation ended on a sour note. The mission proceeded as usual the next day, but just before departure, the space agency suddenly replaced the co-pilot. Minutes later, the rocket launched as normal, and after a few hours, the spacecraft assembly reached lunar orbit. However, affected by a lunar eclipse, they were unable to contact Earth for 2 hours, forcing them to wait for communication to be restored before landing on the moon. Before long, the landing spacecraft experienced violent shaking, risking the detachment of the connecting mechanism at any moment, with 20 minutes remaining until communication was restored. If the connecting rod detached, damage to the landing module would prevent landing, and even returning to Earth would be impossible. Captain Kong decisively ordered the spacecraft to detach from the rocket ahead of schedule. To their dismay, the main engine of the spacecraft failed to ignite. The pilot could only adjust the spacecraft's attitude by continuous jetting, but ultimately, the spacecraft violently collided with the lunar surface. Finally stopping at the edge of a cliff. Fortunately, all crew members successfully evacuated the spacecraft, but Deputy Chief Wang, the only one who had been to the Bohai base, suffered from respiratory failure due to a rib fracture, and remained there forever. At that time, they were still 7 kilometers away from the Bohai base. To complete the mission, or one could say, to stay alive, they could only jog all the way, and managed to arrive at the Bohai base just a second before the oxygen ran out. But as soon as they entered the base gate, they discovered the bodies of mercenaries. What's more eerie is that, the team doctor deduced from the sticky foam at the mouth and the swollen stolen chest of the deceased, that he must have drowned, but on the moon, which is severely lacking in water. This is obviously impossible. Moreover, before departure, Chief Jean mentioned that there had been a nuclear leak at the base, but now the radiation levels are quite normal. Dr. Song suggested performing an autopsy on the body first, in order to find out the truth behind it. However, Captain He Kong directly rejected her proposal. Their goal was to retrieve the lost samples. Soon, the group arrived at the base control room. After a series of operations, the Bohai base was back in operation. The lights, extinguished for 5 years, gradually lit up, but they still couldn't establish contact with Earth. Fortunately, the base's simulated gravity and life support systems were functioning normally. After turning on the air purification system, the environment was no different from that on Earth. Everyone also took off their helmets. According to the base's three-dimensional map, only those with level 1 clearance can enter the red zones, but the map does not specify their exact functions. There are 3 storage rooms for the samples. Captain Kong decided to split up the team to act. Upon finding a sample capsule, one must immediately check the integrity of the outer shell. If it shows red, avoid any contact at all costs. If green, contact Dr. Song for handling. After the teams were divided, Dr. Song approached Shiokan. She had heard that every member of the Bohai base had an implanted positioning chip. She wanted to use the system to locate all the bodies. Clearly, this was a lie. Dr. Song made up to find her sister's body, but Shiokan had already tried before. It's possible that the accident caused the positioning system to be unusable. Under Captain Kong's urging, the 3 teams began to search separately. On the way to storage room No. 3, the new co-pilot kept complaining about Captain Kong's past. He was once a gold medal astronaut for the space agency, but for some unknown reason, he applied for retirement. However, this time, Director Chui promised that as long as he completed the mission, his water card level would be upgraded. But Dr. Song didn't care about that. 5 years ago, she found the word searching for Luna in her sister's encrypted document. For 5 years, those words have lingered in her mind. Before this departure, she had found Wang, the only one who returned from the Bohai base, to inquire about Luna. Wang told her that Luna was the data storage center of the Bohai base. So Dr. Song believed that only by finding Luna could the cause of the accident that year be unraveled. All along the way, she also kept searching for the location of the database. Meanwhile, Captain Kong and his team encountered trouble. The door to storage room No. 2 could not be opened. They could only forcefully pry open a crack, and then when the entire door was opened, more bodies fell out. Behind the door were all the bodies of the base members. The scratch marks on the walls indicated they had experienced painful struggles. However, the space agency's report claimed that everyone had already died before the base was sealed. Now it seems that the space agency's report was clearly a lie, and the people before us also showed signs of having drowned. All signs point to a secret unknown to the public. Dr. Song wanted to access the medical records of the base members, but was once again rejected by Captain Kong. After speaking, Captain Kong entered storage room No. 1. The red on the walls indicated there were no usable samples left. The capsules scattered on the ground were also empty. The same was true for storage room No. 2. At that moment, Dr. Song and the others arrived at the door of storage room No. 3. A teammate detected an unknown biological signal. Could there be survivors here? The teammate decided to go alone to check it out. Seeing that only he and Dr. Song were left, the co-pilot persuaded Dr. Song to go to the medical room to check the cases, to analyze the cause of death of the base members. Meanwhile, he would hold Captain Kong here. Without much thought, Dr. Song rushed to the medical room. On the other side, in storage room No. 2, Shiokan was attracted by a green light. While taking a sample, he accidentally touched a body, and a small drop of moon water flew into his eye. Little did he know, this tiny drop of moon water would eventually take his life. And walked and suddenly hallucinated, seeing living starfish on the wall. He returned to the control room like a zombie. Just as he sat down, the next second, a large amount of clear water spurted from his mouth. The team members were scared stiff at that moment, immediately notifying the team doctor. The team doctor who received the message also rushed to the control room, not forgetting to remind them to put on isolation suits, to avoid direct contact with Shiotsan. On the other side, after distracting Dr. Song, the co-pilot opened storage room No. 3 alone. Inside, it was pitch black. During the search, he accidentally dropped the flashlight under the table. As he bent down to pick up the flashlight, suddenly the flashlight moved a bit. Although somewhat panicked, he still reached inside, unexpectedly finding a surprise. He actually found a bottle of intact moon water capsules. He then used the special communication device to send a message to Earth that the mission was completed. It seems he indeed had an unknown secret. Meanwhile, Dr. Song also arrived at the medical room, but could not open the hatch door. With no choice, she had to hurry back. When she arrived at storage room No. 3, she saw a horrifying scene. The co-pilot was lifted high by an unknown creature, then slammed heavily onto the ground, meeting his end instantly. The sample capsules that fell to the ground also disappeared into the darkness. Soon, Captain Kong and the others arrived. Dr. Song's unauthorized departure made her a prime suspect. The captain immediately checked Dr. Song's recorder. The video showed a hand reaching out from the darkness, taking the capsule samples from the ground. Everyone was incredulous speechless at what they saw. After research, they found a ventilation duct behind the cabinet. It seems the unknown creature had escaped from there. On the other side, the medical doctor immediately attempted to resuscitate Shio-san. Even after opening the airway, water kept flowing from his mouth. The doctor had no choice but to intubate urgently, but even so, water kept pouring out of the tube. When everything stopped, it also marked Shio-san's death, losing 3 teammates in 3 hours. Fear spread among the crew. The captain could only comfort the team members. While arranging the follow-up work, the doctor and Dr. Song immediately began the autopsy. To find the cause of death of the base personnel and Shio-san, he took the others to search for the unknown creature. They advanced through the ventilation ducts. Inside, they found some chalk graffiti. Then, sounds came from above. They followed the sounds. But soon, a large door blocked their path. This door could only be opened with level 1 clearance. The group had no choice but to return to the control room. In the medical room, the doctor first collected blood samples from Shio-san, but discovered the blood had become transparent. Dr. Song then collected samples from several base members. After laboratory analysis, no signs of bacterial infection or disease were found. This indicates they are all very healthy. However, the autopsy results for Shio-san showed a large amount of water rushed into the bronchi in a short time, causing bronchial swelling, and the water gushed from inside the body. Various signs suggest the cause of death for the base members and Shio-san was the same. But after some time, Shio-san's blood had a lot of water content on top. The doctor had never seen such a case before, with teammates dying one after another, and the addition of a mysterious unknown creature. Captain Kong was eager to make contact with Earth. The engineer also inspected the entire base, and it turned out that the central processor of the communication tower had a problem. The elevator, neglected for 5 years, was already broken. No one was willing to risk death to repair it. Left with no choice, Captain Kong had to go himself. But just as he descended halfway down the rope, the elevator above crashed down towards him. Fortunately, Captain Kong was agile. With a leap, he avoided the falling elevator. However, the impact caused an oxygen leak. In a daze, he saw his sick daughter, whose legs had severely atrophied from drinking unhealthy water. Without a large intake of high-grade purified water, she might never be able to stand up again. But with Captain Kong's current blue card, it was clear he couldn't cure his daughter. That's why he, though retired, risked his life to come to the moon. The power of a father's love brought him back to consciousness, and he successfully replaced the central processor chip. But upon returning to the base, he found they still couldn't contact Earth. It was then, the system detected a communication signal from outside the base. The receiving location was the deceased co-pilot's storage room number 3. When Captain Kong and his team arrived, they found nothing out of the ordinary. In the end, they found a communicator on the co-pilot. It turned out the co-pilot was the spy secretly sending out signals. With this communicator, they finally made contact with Director Chui. Captain Kong informed the director about the spy. He had good reason to suspect Director Chui, since it was he who ordered the co-pilot's last-minute replacement. But Director Chui was very surprised, and then inadvertently denied it. After some explanation, the captain, unable to contact anyone else, could only temporarily believe him. But when Captain Kong suggested that the attacker of the co-pilot might be a base survivor, Director Chui showed no surprise. Clearly, he knew some secrets, yet he still firmly believed there could be no survivors at the base. In the end, he issued a new order. If they couldn't bring back the capsule samples, then they were to destroy them all at the base. To expedite their mission, Director Chui granted them level 1 authorization. Meanwhile, Dr. Song and others in the medical room experiment accidentally discovered the secret of the moon water's infinite division. She confronted Captain Kong, asking if he had known about the existence of moon water. Captain Kong could only share the news he had just received. They had discovered moon water on the moon long ago. The government believed that after their experiments, moon water could save the parched earth. And Dr. Song's sister was an expert in the study of moon water. It was precisely because of their failed experiment 5 years ago that destroyed the entire base. To understand the content of their experiment, they had to find the central database. With the level 1 authorization given by Director Chui, they successfully reached the base's lowest level. But what caught their eyes were walls filled with capsules of moon water. Before they could rejoice, a shadow flashed by, and a team member's arm was torn off alive. It turned out to be a little girl, clutching a capsule sample in her hand. A trembling teammate shot the girl, then she dodged, avoiding the subsequent bullets, and slipped into a ventilation shaft. During this, the sample in the girl's hand fell to the ground, and the moon water began to flow into the blood, instantly starting to divide rapidly. Seeing the moon water multiplying, the team had to evacuate quickly with the samples. Just one contact, and they paid a heavy price of 1 death and 1 injury. Dr. Song, an animal behavior expert, analyzed, she was likely protecting the moon water. At this time, Captain Kong made contact with Director Chui again. When he saw that the captain had found the moon water, he promised to send a spaceship to take them home immediately. During this time, they were to ignore the existence of the little girl. Ensuring the return of the moon water was their primary goal. Only in this way could Captain Kong save his daughter. The words carried a hint of threat. After the video call ended, a photo with the little girl appeared on Director Chui's desk, surely hiding an unspeakable secret. At the base, Captain Kong clearly didn't heed Director Chui's words. He immediately arranged for his team to capture the little girl, while Dr. Song insisted on retrieving the moon water data from the database. Only then could they uncover the truth behind it all. Reluctantly, the captain could only arrange for the doctor to accompany her. Upon reaching the database, they found all records about the moon water had been erased. Obviously, someone didn't want the secret of the moon water leaked. At the same time, the captain, also injured, revealed his true identity. He pulled out a communicator from his pocket. Clearly, he was also a spy. The other side told the captain to take the moon water and meet at the planned location, and to eliminate all witnesses. Just as he was about to take the moon water, he was caught red-handed by Dr. Song and the doctor returning. He lied about receiving a notice from the captain to gather in the control room, and he was preparing to move the moon water for safety. But Dr. Song had not received any information, and anything related to the moon water had always been handled by her. Seeing his cover blown, the ruthless captain decided to silence them, and just then, the girl suddenly appeared at the door of the medical room. Clearly, her target was the moon water. The captain fired decisively, but all were dodged by the girl's swift speed, even knocking the captain down in the end. The others who received the message also rushed over. Dr. Song gestured not to shoot yet. She slowly placed the lunar water on the table. The little girl became unusually quiet. At that moment, Dr. Song realized the clothes she was wearing were her sister's. While she was puzzled, the little girl reached out to take back the capsule, but as soon as she touched the sample, the captain fired a shot and shattered the shell. Clearly, he intended to eliminate her. She writhed in pain on the table, and then a bizarre scene unfolded. Not only did scales and gills grow on her face, but the gunshot wound she just received was healing rapidly. Before everyone could react, she escaped with astonishing speed. Clearly, she had not only adapted to the lunar water, but her physical functions had also been enhanced. If we could uncover the secrets within her body, humanity could completely solve the water resource crisis. Captain Kong immediately contacted Chief Jean, from whom he learned that the blockade of the Bohai base was Director Choi's idea. At that time, many senior officials did not agree with this. Chief Jean also told him, if he wanted to know the answer, he could talk to Dr. Song. Perhaps she would have the answers the captain was looking for. Dr. Song believed that deleting the data on lunar water was clearly because they didn't want lunar water to cause more casualties, but now, they could only use the little girl as a breakthrough. Since the little girl was after the lunar water, they decided to use it as bait to capture her alive. Meanwhile, the captain who saw the little girl also contacted his superiors. They included the little girl in their mission. When he tried to secretly take the sample capsule, he didn't notice that his injured teammate had also woken up. The captain's entire conspiracy was overheard by him. After the captain left, he was just about to report to the team leader, but unexpectedly, on the other side, the team leader's strategy worked. They successfully lured out the little girl, but just as the gate was closing, the girl trying to escape got her leg caught in the gate. Dr. Song couldn't bear it, and quickly went forward to comfort her, but was bitten by the girl. At that moment, she also noticed the character code on the girl's neck. Hearing her own name, the girl gradually calmed down. Taking advantage of this gap, Captain Kong fired a tranquilizer. The girl then fell into a comatose state. In the medical room on the other side, the doctor discovered that the lunar water had been taken. She also found the body of a teammate in the freezer. She immediately reported the situation to the team leader. At this time, the captain had already arrived at the control room. He activated the base protection mode. One by one, the gates began to close immediately. The alarm sounded throughout the entire base. The noise woke up the girl. With a struggle, she escaped from Captain Kong's embrace. She ran into the nearby ventilation ducts. Dr. Song immediately chased after her. Around the corner, it seemed the girl was waiting for Dr. Song. She followed the girl to a living cabin. After opening the cabinet door, she saw the girl shivering inside. With her expertise in biology, she quickly gained the trust of the girl. Looking around, she realized this was her sister's former residence. On the bed, she found a hard drive left by her sister. Inside were all the records of the lunar water experiments. It turned out they had been experimenting with various animals all along. Later, to accelerate progress, the superiors ordered them to conduct experiments with clones. And so, one by one, the clones perished. With the continuous mixing of various genes, Luna 73 finally passed the experiment, and she also accidentally gained the ability to heal at high speed. Meanwhile, Captain Kong began to suspect the missing captain. He ordered the deputy captain to continue searching for Dr. Song and Luna. He went to look for the captain's whereabouts. Along the way, he encountered a lone doctor. By accident, the two discovered a warehouse storing clones. Bags filled with clones were packed tightly, making them dizzy. Over at the control room, little Fatty had just walked in when he was ambushed and attacked by the captain. Shot several times, he intended to use the lunar water as leverage, but the captain, blinded by rage, fired several more shots at little Fatty. As he fell, the capsule broke and contaminated little Fatty. Soon after, he violently vomited water, and then drowned as if plunging into an abyss. Captain Kong ordered everyone to gather in the laboratory. He informed everyone about the captain's actions and the spaceship Earth had already sent, and told everyone to prepare for evacuation. He then went to the living cabin to ambush the captain. On the other side, the captain also arrived at the sisters' room. By then, the room was already empty. Just as he was about to evacuate, Captain Kong arrived in time. The two grappled with each other. At the same time, the lunar water in the secret storage room burst through the barriers. It gushed out through the ventilation ducts. The ceiling above began to leak water, creating a barrier between the the two in an instant. Dr. Song on the other side also noticed the water overhead. A drop of water fell on her face. By the time she returned to the lab, she showed symptoms of lunar water infection. She quickly isolated herself. Then, a large amount of lunar water gushed out from her mouth. Afterward, like little Fatty, she fell into the endless abyss. But the scene shifted, and she woke up again, because she had been bitten by the girl. The girl's antibodies also benefited her. Then they contacted Chief Jean. He informed everyone that the rescue spacecraft had arrived at the moon's orbit, but there was also a small spacecraft, likely sent by the mysterious organization to pick up the captain. Captain Kong hoped Chief Jean could delay the mysterious spacecraft as much as possible, while they aimed to prevent the captain from taking away the lunar water. Before evacuating, Captain Kong equipped Luna with a tracker, and Luna began to trust him. He had just stepped out of the lab when Luna noticed something was off. The lunar water had broken through the barriers. Rushing towards them, they had no choice but to give up on finding the captain, and ran wildly following Luna. After they closed the door of airlock number 7, they found the captain had already been waiting there, but the glass door of the airlock had begun to crack. The deputy captain, without hesitation, confronted the captain. Although he succeeded in killing the captain, he himself was shot several times. In the end, he stayed there forever. What's worse, due to the excessive water pressure, the door could not be closed. Someone had to stay behind to close it manually, or else no one would be able to leave alive. The captain chose to sacrifice himself. At this moment, Luna was nowhere to be seen. In the end, only Dr. Song and the doctor escaped. Following the footprints, they found Luna standing on the slope. It seems Luna not only adapted to the lunar water, but also to the vacuum of space. Then the rescue spacecraft arrived at the moon. They prepared to take Luna to the Neutral Joint Space Laboratory, so that the fruits of the lunar water would benefit all of humanity.